Hi folks, I'm Eric. Welcome back to my channel. Um, I just wanted to talk a little bit today about the blocks and the blocks pulling aspect and the rules aspect of the game as the game is going on. If you're not a role-playing gamer and you're just a teacher that wants to bring role-playing into the classroom and you want something that's accessible, I want to get you started. But for people who don't do this, the rules aspect of it is weird. So I just want to talk a little bit about that today and about how it's going to work when you play a game. So the rules aspect of it. Um, what you need to know is that you are the main storyteller as the teacher. The host, as it's called in Dread, is the person who's responsible for narrating the events of the story. They play any incidental characters that happen on the scene, and they tell the main thrust of what's going on. The students, as characters, they get to decide how they react through their actions. So students might try at one point to say, yeah, but a guy comes and he's got a package for me, and nope, that's not how it goes. I can tell the main parts of the story, and then you're welcome to tell me how your character wants to behave and respond. Um, and kids, I mean, kids are kids, right? So they're gonna say, oh well, like I pushed my friend off the cliff or something, like that. Um, and that's when and you only need one. You have one really serious conversation for a minute, and you say, look, like I understand, it's totally normal, but this isn't comedy. This is horror, and horror is a different genre. And so I want you to think about that. You're really this person. You wouldn't make those choices. So I get it. It's familiar. It's familiar to want to laugh about it, but we have to keep it in the pocket of like ghost story. When it's happening to you, it's not funny at all. And it only takes one kind of quick conversation, and then let it completely go. And you're going to find that everyone makes much, much more mature choices. So the kids cannot dictate events of the story to you at all. For those people who might be just joining me today, hey, welcome. So Dread is a storytelling role-playing game that uses a Jenga tower as its main mechanic. So when students want to try to do something that's going to affect the outcome of the story, they're invited to pull a block or sometimes more than one block out of the Jenga tower. If you succeed in putting your block on top, your check succeeds. You're allowed to fail any check and just say, you know what, the tower just looks too unstable, I fail, and then you just narrate their failure. They tried to do it, it didn't come off. And I have a house rule. This is not in the game Dread, but I have a house rule of once you walk up to the tower, you get 30 seconds. You get 30 seconds if it's one block. You get 30 seconds if it's two blocks. You get 30 seconds no matter the number of blocks. The maximum personal best I've ever had a student pull is 6. It was a brand new tower, but it was an intense moment too. So they will surprise you when properly motivated. So I have a 30-second rule, and what that does, teachers, is that prevents a kid from poking and prodding every single block for 5 minutes, and you're trying to keep the thread of your narration going. Once they walk up, they get 30 seconds. If that time elapses and their hand is still at the switch, they fail the check. That's it. And that will keep the energy driving forward, and you don't have some kid who thinks he's going to take forever at the tower. And the tower is the tower. If it falls over, it has to be that the person is removed from the game. It doesn't have to mean that they're removed from the game that moment. Like if you're in the opening, I have had kids biff the tower on the opening pulls of the game. And you have to remove them from the game, because if the tower is not the tower, then the tower they have no fear of it. Like if you can ignore the tower rule, then you don't feel the same thing. Okay, because we can fix it. You can't fix the tower ever. And that's the only way that they feel that fear and that tension in your narration. Um, so when you are playing the game, it's not playing a game of Dread in the classroom is not the same as playing a game of Dread casually. When you're with friends, you can have something that's tailored to their exact interests. You can have a game where the story unfolds kind of slowly and it's a slow burn investigation or something like that. You can't do that in a classroom. You're going to have them for 2 hours, 2.5 hours maximum. Their attention will flag. It's a long time. Like, it's like saying, we're going to watch, the Lord of the Rings director's cut, sit still. So you got them for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You keep the story engaging, they'll stay with you. But it means that you don't have those slow start games. You need reasons built into your story to pull blocks right away. So I'm going to tell you a couple of the stories that I've played in classrooms. I've written these stories. I've sometimes ripped off these stories. I'll steal from anything. It's not for profit. Like, it's education. I won't sell those. So I can tell you a little bit about these stories that I've used in classrooms and say sort of how that goes. So, for instance, I have a story that takes place. There's a group of students. There's a teacher chaperone, and they are visiting London, England. They are so excited. They're stoked to be there. It's a beautiful day. They've decided to get up really early to go on the London Eye before lots of foot traffic. So that they can get a really nice walking tour plan, go on the London Eye, and they're excited. And improbably, that's when, and of course, that region of the world is not an earthquake-prone region, but kids suspend their disbelief all the time for different plots. So a huge off-the-scale earthquake happens off the coast of England, and a huge tsunami. There's a huge tsunami, there's a warning for the whole region. Anyway, and you describe the tsunami as it's coming up, as buildings, are getting destroyed, and cars are getting thrown as if they're paper, and and people trying to outrun the absolutely impossible wave that's coming towards them. So the students being in a car at the top of the London Eye, of course, at the start of the game, the whole structure creaks with the groaning of the metal that's been horrifically damaged. And you describe the devastation around. And you see, the little pinpoints that are the backs of people as they're bobbing in the water. And you don't say anything that's a really graphic. One of my rules is I do try to remove the violence from them and keep them at a little bit arm's length where I can. So don't describe anything about bodies. Describe just the confetti. They're of course like 500 feet in the air at the top of the London Eye. So we have reasons right away to get right to the meat of it. You cannot open the London Eye doors from inside, so students devise some way to try and crack through the glass. And of course, that glass is construction glass, so there are blocks involved with pulling the construction glass out of the, often I say, we'll pull a block for the actually breaking the glass, like having the energy commitment to break the glass. And then I would say, often, like, okay, I'm going to also ask you to pull another block to ensure that when that happens, you don't accidentally overcommit your energy and fall outside of the car when the door accidentally springs open. So, you get a couple of blocks right at the start of the game. And then after that, Um, of course, everyone, like, of course, London is devastated. And, they hear distant sirens, but they know that no one's coming for them. Everything is in such ruins that they're going to deal with the people that they can get to. The roads are even gone. So, they know that they're definitely on their own, and they hear the groan of metal fatigue again as the structure of the London Eye starts to ominously shift and their car sways. Um, you know, so then they have to actually leave the car and walk out into the air. I mean, there's a metal structure. You describe it to them. You show them photos of it. You put the photo up, up on your screen, so that they can see what they're dealing with. And they see that this, crisscross metal structure that they can climb like monkey bars, except the monkey bars are 500 feet in the air and they've got to do it. So, what I frequently do right at the start, when they are about to leave the pod and step out onto the metal, is to say, okay, so every person is going to just pull me like a guts block. Like, can you literally will yourself to step from the relative safety of this glass pod out onto, tubular metal, 500 feet in the air? And then a second block for just like a general balance. Like, you're just not not the panic moment, but your general athleticism. Um, but that times 5 players, we already have a structure that's dangerous. So right at the start of your game, have some reason that all of them have to do a check. And it's an important one. It's one that starts the tone right away. I have had students die on this first pull, where they biff the tower, and I have to describe literally the first thing that happens as they step out is that one of them, like goes to talk to someone and their foot slips, and that's it. And, don't describe too much. It might just literally be a silent fall because it catches them such by surprise. You can decide that depending on the level of your students. Um, so so right away, we've got a structure that's intimidating, that will make them feel that fear when they walk up at the critical point in the narrative and have to make a check, knowing that this is possibly going to fall down. Another one that I've done is, I try to always have a sleepover scenario. Sleepover scenarios are kind of, it's a feeling of nostalgia for me. So the 10-second premise, I guess, is at a sleepover. It's a really big deal because it's the kids' first time of having a sleepover, and the parents are going to be out for the night. It's their anniversary. They're going out to dinner and a movie. They're going to be a while. You guys are topped up with snacks. Don't worry about it. There is a storm that's coming, but no problem. You know where everything is. You know where candles are. Have fun. So one of the kids has brought a Ouija board tonight. And I've got a whole backstory that goes with it about, where the kid came from. And actually, like, I'll get back to that later. But I described that, they try to use the Ouija board, and then the pointer starts, erratically careening around the board. And it spells out something, spell out something really terrifying and ominous. I have the power go out, and of course, they've got candles out already because it's the Ouija board session, so they already had that out. And then the power goes out, and the end of the message happens at the moment when the power goes out, and then the erratic message, and they realize that they have summoned something really terrifying. And with the power go out, describe the television go on in static. Kids will usually get a pretty good jump. well, I'll handle this, and I'll go and pull the plug out and describe how nothing changes. And then I have a really fun description where they start to see almost like the screen, the glass bows out in the shape of a person that's trying to come out of the television screen, made of the static that's on the television. And it's a wonderful rich moment. And but then I say, like, you know, uh, the kids, thinks that he's going to play hide and seek with you. He's counting down, and everyone scatters and runs and hides. So everyone hides as an automatic. That's a thing they can fail. So they describe, these hiding places and whatnot, and and then you describe, and it was one of my favorite moments, I think, of storytelling, describing the whole scene by the sound effects that happen, that they hear. Because of course they don't want to look at anything, and then describe, the sound, of that particular creaky floorboard near the bottom of the stairs. And it can be a wonderful, rich ghost storytelling moment. But of course, functionally, what's going on too is every kid that's hidden, have they had to climb up onto a dresser? That's a block. Under panic, and they're a kid, that's a thing they could fail. So have them pull a block. Have them pull a block for hiding well, because this is a kid looking to play hide and seek. Do you accidentally leave your toes peeking out of that blanket? Did you not arrange yourself well enough on the bed with the stuffies? When you hid under the bed, did any part of you, spill out and is visible? And so make them pull blocks for those things. And so then suddenly, at the moment when the door creaks open and you hear what sounds like slightly damp feet, like naked feet on the tile, as they, and you hear someone walk into the room. And then you can play around with them, and say, like, is the person under the bed, do you sneak a peek? And you can actually describe, like, the depression of the carpet where a foot should be, but you just see the shape of it. Or as the child is searching, you're under a bunch of clothes that were cast into the closet, and you feel the pressure of someone who is standing near you, and you feel the pressure transferred through the clothing. So there's really great storytelling moments, and really what it is kind of really well knowing your environment, and how you might describe it, have a good picture of it, and be ready to just tell the story in small little bits, because the players will definitely do some things. They'll make some choices suddenly when they panic, and it's really fun to watch their plans kind of all disintegrate. And then, because of course that's what horror is, you're just making a choice among bad choices, and it's really, really fun. Let's see, describing the environment, or describing the big events that happen. I did a complete Honey, I Shrunk the Kids ripoff. I don't apologize. And I described this moment where they hear Dad, hey, you kids in the treehouse, have you gotten, your sleepover stuff put away yet? And then they watch, and they're teeny tiny, and they watch as impossibly tall Dad strides across the vast yard, and climbs up the ladder of the treehouse, and they watch as his huge head fills the gigantic doorway, and you describe this happening. Well, some kids will have already, I've given them a little bit of time, chuckle up my sleeve. I've given them a little bit of time to decide, do you have a plan on how to get down here right now? One of the common fun ones is we all jump into the chip bag that's near the door, and trust that a wind current is gonna make us land safely, which I love. Like, I will absolutely play this game with them. So so they're ready for the chip bag, and then is when I bring dad out, because they're ready to do the thing, and then they have to decide, do we want to stay here and try and get dad to notice us? Do we want to jump down and avoid gigantic feet as they're about to stomp all over the treehouse floor where we're standing? So frequently they elect to leave by whatever conveyance they've thought up. And they're down at the ground, and of course, dad told them in no uncertain terms that they had to clean up all their stuff first thing before they did anything. So the dad arrives up in the treehouse, and no kids, all their stuff is there. So, they hear angry dad. And of course, I've described dad as having, having a voice that sounds like it's gigantic skyscraper size, speakers, that just kick you in the chest with sound, because of the size difference. So they hear angry dad as he's ranting above them about, the stuff that they left behind, and they went off to who knows where, probably the park. And, you just kind of generally bluster. But then you specifically make sure that you ask the kids, what do you want to do? And if they don't say, get out of the way of this, get behind the ladder, or any version of that, then the next the pulls that I have them do is, of course, dad, being really upset about how they ditched their duties, starts throwing, sleeping bags and pillows and bedding out the door of the treehouse, right to where they are. So, which is not normally a problem, but when you're a quarter-inch tall, suddenly these things are many hundreds of tons objects comparatively, that start thundering down around them. And meanwhile, dad's just, sort of ranting. And meanwhile, at the bottom of the ladder, these, gigantic, impossible mountain-shaped things are landing among them. And of course, they're pulling blocks for that. So, having excuses to have a bunch of people pull each their block when big events happen is really, really amazing. Now, on the subject of the difficulty for the players, here's the thing. If something is really easy because it's right in that person's wheelhouse, you might have them pull no blocks at all. So you might say, oh, lifeguard on a calm day? No, don't pull a block. You just swim. Like, it's your job. So no block is needed for that. If it's something that's like a regular difficulty thing, like it might be one block. So like an average swimmer swims a couple of pool lengths, with not being able to touch bottom. That might be a regular difficulty single block pull. But if it's difficult, then it's up to the host to decide how the task breaks down. Because, say for instance, I don't know, I've described myself as like a couch potato, never does anything athletic. And the host decides that this is actually a hard check for me, then it might be, one block to keep sort of my mouth above water and not swallowing water and getting more agitated, and then a second block to actually go in the direction that I want to go. And the difficulty, there's no real functional limit to it. So if you have something that's like you deem very difficult for someone to do, you can break it down as much as you want. As an example, in my London Eye scenario, I want the players to play the game and not take shortcuts. So of course, all of the guy wires on the London Eye that support the structure, well, kids frequently go, well, yeah, I'm just going to slide down one of those. I really want them to understand how scary that is and how bad a plan that is. So I had to write rules for it because I knew that some kid would insist, like, absolutely, I want to do it. So I said, going down the London Eye and using the guy wire as like a huge fireman pole would cost you 6 blocks. And they always freak out. And you say, but listen, think about this. Like, you are taller than a lot of buildings right now. You're higher up than a lot of buildings right now. And you want to just, even just to force yourself to let go of safety and go quickly down the slide is going to be like, it's definitely going to be 1 block just for guts. And then it's braided metal cable. So if you're like got your arms on that, or if you slip or whatever, your hands or arms are going to get injured on metal cables. And then keeping your thighs similarly from getting injured. And then as you get to the hub, all of those cables, of course, like there's hundreds of them, all converge. So don't get injured on your ankles or lower legs as those quickly approaching cables, come up to meet you. And then, of course, when you hit there, it's probably going to be with some impact. Don't injure your back or your legs or your hips. And then finally, don't be disoriented and fall. I sometimes have a kid try it. I never have a second kid in the same game try it. So, basically, as you describe the events of the game, the kids will say what you want to do. Punch up the description. You know the game that you're going to play, so know sort of how that's going to be really tense and describe that. And I'm going to have lots of, again, if you access the stories that I will end up delivering, I will have thought of some great things for you there. Yeah, so they will have a plan. They will try it, and you can suggest some plans. Some kids need a little imagination help, and that's okay because we've locked them onto screens now, so they don't actually do a lot of imagining on their own. Help them out. I start one game frequently with sort of here are some suggestions of verbs you can use to remind them of some of the actions that they might choose to take. So they will have plans. You will decide how difficult a task that is owing to the circumstances. And then they pull the blocks, and then you narrate the results of that. And the results are sometimes sort of that scene finishes and we give them a little break for a minute. And sometimes the result of a pull puts you into the next scenario. So, for instance, if someone fails a critical block on the London Eye, they might slip as they're climbing, and their strap of their backpack is now what's holding them up, and they hear the canvas starting to tear. So then that prompts the next action. The people around have to climb down quickly. They're trying to help themselves up. The canvas describe the tearing, and the scene continues, and that prompts another bunch of blocks to be pulled. So it feels a little daunting, but you'll have some scenes of like, these are some broad events that are going to happen to bring the story from beginning to an end. And then in the middle of that, students are going to try some things out, and depending on how they succeed and fail are going to be, well, that's how the story goes. Of course, you get to decide how much horror is involved with a character dying in the scene. I treat it very much like I try to remove, because I do a lot of this at grade 5 and 6. So I try to bring them at sort of arm's length to that part of it, and focus mostly on sort of the feelings of it, the description of it, placing them in the moment, and those kinds of things. Remove help from them right away. Have something that prevents outside forces from getting to them. So the tsunami in London, the fact that they are a 1/4 inch tall and they can't yell to anyone to help them. or whatever thing is, but make sure that they can't get outside help. And then just know your sandbox, understand what's in it, understand the consequences of things that can happen in it. And the rest then just becomes sort of description and playing with the kids and how they want to, how do they want to do that. We normally never get to the end of a story because I write them pretty densely so that they can be played for a long time. And so, so we never get to the end of a story by the end of a 2-hour session, but what we frequently have is a really amazing story starter that the kids can then write the ending. But if it happens that your kids get to the end of a story and they're legitimately like possibly going to have some kids alive at the end and solve the scenario, have an idea of how they can solve it. Have already thought about like what would we say is a thing that can happen that will bring this story to a close. Roll credits. So and of course, I like to have a few different possibilities written into my stories, and think about yours. What would be the ending of the story? And sometimes they write them for you. Sometimes they come up with a really zany plan, and they present it to you, and you go, "Perfect! I got 20 minutes left. Let's do it." And then right at the bell, is the critical moment, and this, some of the students survive while others meet their fate. Look, thank you so much for listening along with this. I'm excited to bring this project for people. I know that I'm newer to camera rather than have a live audience. So thanks for those folks who have watched me so far. I want to bring you lots of more stories, lots more tips and tricks so that you can bring role-playing to the classroom. It's an invaluable tool for bonding. It's great for getting them excited to write. It's a fun time. And thanks for sticking with this video, and I'll see you next time. Take care.